Have you ever been in a place where you just lost yourself in the world around you? Where all of the rest of the world, all of its worries and obligations, they just melted away? Where you could forget who you are and just exist in this place? Well, there's a game that's all about that feeling, which dunks you into the deep end of its dour and delightful world and lets you get lost in all it has to offer. And that game is a little indie title called Yume Nikki. Yume Nikki feels like a real mystery of a game. In 2004, it was quietly dropped into a shadowy corner of the internet by its creator, Kikiyama. We don't know who Kikiyama is or why he made this game, but over the years, something has drawn people to play Yume Nikki and keep it alive even a decade later. It has become one of the most well-known RPG Maker games of all time. It has inspired countless fan games, even leaving its mark on other major games like Lisa the First and Omori. But at the same time, Yume Nikki is a tiny game. You can technically see most of what it has to offer in just a few hours. If you know what you're doing, you can finish the game in less than an hour. So what is it about this game that envelops people into its world? What is it that has impacted so many people? In this video, I'd like to talk a bit about what I think is so special about Yume Nikki. Yume Nikki begins in the room of a girl named Marotsuki. The girl appears to be a shut-in, as each time you approach the door, she'll shake her head and turn around. Because of this, there's not much you can do other than saving by writing down your memories in your diary, or playing a dumb game about eggplants on your NES. So you decide to climb into bed, and from there, you travel to Marotsuki's dreams. And it's here that you find yourself in a room that is almost identical to her real room. You try to open the door again, and this time it opens and leads you to a hub world called the Nexus, which contains 12 doors. You enter one and are transported into a very odd and abstract world that really just consists of a scrolling background, with strange sprites splattered haphazardly here and there. These worlds on their own aren't very interesting, and they can get really tedious very quickly. But as you bumble around these places, you find entryways to other and deeper worlds. And here's where I think things get really interesting. These deeper worlds have a lot more substance. They aren't just weird things slapped on a background. They have actual designs and really interesting things to find, which creates the feeling that you're actually exploring. And this allows you to take in how bizarre and fascinating these maps are. You never know where you're going, or what interesting thing you will find next. You could enter a doorway and end up seeing anything from an abandoned train car, or a pathway of glowing squares in the middle of a purple void, or even an innocent little room in the middle of this pink sea here. It makes you feel adrift in an alien world, and like you're constantly being tossed from one place to the next, with no bit of the normal world anywhere near you. It really helps you immerse yourself in the atmosphere of the game. But out of all the places in Yume Nikki, I've always really liked the worlds that feel almost real. Places that feel almost like somewhere you actually been to, like a forest or a shopping center. These are the worlds that give off a particular feeling of almost uncanny nostalgia. They're almost right. They have every piece in place to feel correct. They remind you of those recognizable locations, but those pieces just aren't aligned in a way that makes any sense. There are things and places that don't make sense to be in where they are, and things just don't look right. All of these familiar aspects really make you feel like you're in a dream, as though Marotsuki's mind is conjuring up these surreal and half-formed locations. And I think a good example of this is the docks. The docks are an area of boardwalk above inky black water, punctured by yellow lamps. It's a pretty recognizable sight for anyone living near the coast. But this feels just a bit off, like the boardwalk stretches on, way further than it should, and there's no coast that it's protruding from. The boardwalk exists on its own, in the middle of an infinite sea, and since we're so used to boardwalks being short and sticking out from a coastal town, the docks feel wrong, like you're lost in a space between fantasy and reality. That wrongness and that feeling of being lost is what I feel really creates the atmosphere of Yume Nikki. The feeling that you get while playing the game is like one of a traveler, stumbling around a world that you don't understand, And as you go further, you go deeper. And as you go deeper, you become more and more trapped in these strange and serene stages. But as unnerving as they are, they're also enthralling. You want to keep exploring, just so you can get deeper and see more of what's around the corner. The game reminds me a lot of the idea of a liminal space. Liminal spaces are areas of transition, not quite in the real world, but not quite in any kind of fantasy either, as though Madotsuki is caught in some unfinished beta version of reality. And that's exactly what this is. It's a dream. It's a bridge between the waking and sleeping worlds. When the dreaming Madotsuki's mind rearranges details in a strange order, it creates bizarre places that feel so almost right, but still so nonsensical and full of strange, random things. You just feel bewildered as you move through it all. But what I feel really helps drive in the atmosphere of the game is the music. The music consists mainly of short looping ambient tracks, the same ones you've been hearing this entire time. In most games, this would be very, very annoying, but in Yume Nikki, it's mesmerizing. The looping tracks feel almost hypnotic. The constant repetition lulls you into the feeling of the worlds they're from, immersing you further into the game. The songs are almost suffocating, like you're being drowned in the game's atmosphere, but you just want to keep on wandering and going deeper, because it makes you feel like you have no idea where you're going, which direction anything is, but that's okay, because you want to stay forever in these beautiful, endless worlds. And to encapsulate all of what I've just blathered on about, I'd like to talk about my favorite moment in the game, the Sky Garden. Just before you get to the Sky Garden, you have to wander deep into an enormous desert called the Wilderness. From there, you stumble upon a giant Mayan pyramid, and after a slow, deliberate climb, you make it to this peaceful little outpost in the middle of nowhere. The music is just an ambient noise with soft bleeps going off, but it helps bring you into the world and enhances the feeling that the garden evokes. And a little further on, there's a cliff with a group of faceless people looking out from it. And as you walk up and look over the side, you see the lights of a distant city which shine like giant stars in the darkness around them. And you just sit there, taking in the view with these people. This whole area makes me think of a hill just near my house that's right past the boring residential areas, where you can just look out at the city, and it reminds me of when there's some other people there, and we're all just silently looking out at the sight. The fact that the Sky Garden is only accessible from the big Great Pyramid, and these people don't have any faces, makes it feel just like a dream. It's like looking out at my city, but so much more surreal. Like that memory is being distorted by my dreaming brain. And I think this is a good example of that uncanny nostalgia. It's so close to being right, but it still feels alien from reality. Except that this time, it's not unnerving, it's just beautiful. A lot of these moments in the game that you would expect to be unsettling end up being really peaceful and nice, in my opinion. A lot of people understandably see this moment as lonely, because the people you're with never really acknowledge you, and they don't have any expressions, almost like aliens. Personally though, I really like this. It's like I don't need to talk to these people to understand them. We all wanted to come out to see this pretty view and look out at the lights, and that's what we're linked by. I feel that I know a little bit about these people, just through the quiet moments I spent with them, and through that, they become human to me. A lot of people feel a lot of different things while playing Yume Nikki. The game can feel unnerving and lonely and sad, and it's because of those unsettling vibes the game gives off that many have theorized that Madotsuki is depressed, or that she's a victim of trauma of some sort. And I think that comes from how abstract so many of the aspects of the game are, and from people interpreting all of these really strange areas and objects. But for me, I don't feel any of that. I feel really comforted by the game. It feels less like a game about trauma, and more one about discovery. I love the feeling of discovering these distant places and just losing myself in exploring their fascinating environments. And this is how Yume Nikki feels. It's like I'm just traveling through a separate reality, and it feels so calm. There's no worry, no pain. No one here can judge you. Both you and the people you meet are just absorbing yourselves in the world that you're all exploring. And exploration is what I feel this game is all about. Yume Nikki is a special experience. There aren't many games that can create an atmosphere that washes over you and drowns you into its confusing corridors quite like this one can. It creates one of the best feelings of exploration that I've experienced. You can really get lost in these worlds, in all of their weirdness and wonder. It's like an endless rabbit hole of strangeness and surrealism that grabs you and drags you down. But after you've seen all the beauty that's hidden under the surface of these worlds, well, you might never want to leave.